you are a very wealthy woman, one of the most successful women in the Indian finance industry.
Whatever you're spending your money on today will cost you 10% more next year and 10% more the year after.
On the list of India's richest people, the percentage of women is shockingly low.
Women actually are far better with money than men are. They give you 1.5-2% better return than men fund managers. Now, why does that happen? Warren Buffett says that invest like a woman. Only 2% women have thought about their retirement. We are all depending on husband, father, God, son. If you're 20, for example, your goal could be to study further. It could be to upskill, get married. All of us want Sabyasachi lehengas and the works when we get married.
How can one invest in gold? What is the process of doing it? Is buying jewelry an investment?
Not really.
Take us through what are the different ways that we can invest our money in.
Been in this industry and done wealth management for almost 30 years now. Is that are your best bet?
Money is power, but for generations, women have been told it's not their responsibility. From dinner table conversations to family decisions, financial planning has been considered a man's job. As a result, women often grew up without learning the very basics of saving, investing, or building wealth. And that's exactly what we want to change today. Priti Rathi Gupta is a trailblazer in India's finance industry, founder of Lxme, the country's first financial platform built exclusively for women, and a key leader at Anand Rathi Share and Stockbrokers. A Harvard Business School alumni, she has redefined how women engage with wealth, creating a movement to make financial independence a non-negotiable for millions. This conversation is designed as a masterclass, a guide every woman can keep coming back to, whether she's earning her first paycheck, planning for children, managing a household, or thinking about retirement. From fixed deposits to mutual funds, insurance to tax benefits, we'll cover it all today. So the first thing that I want to start with is asking you what are the key financial terms that women should know about. So take us to first grade of financial education.
Okay. So I think you'd expect this to be like a finance masterclass given by a financial guru. But I think because I talk to women, I've realized that jargonizing a lot of this is what's led us to stay away from finances, right? It's actually very simple. A lot of people say financial management is an art. It's not. It's fairly simple. There are just basically 3 or 4 concepts that you need to know, right? The first one you need to know is that saving is not equal to investing, right? A lot of people think that I've saved money, I'm saving is equal to investing. For your money to be invested, you have to make sure that it's growing more than what we call inflation. So that's actually, inflation is the first term that anybody who sets out to invest needs to know. What is the inflation? And inflation typically means, how the prices of everything that you consume is growing year on year. That means what you can afford today will be more expensive tomorrow, right? In layman Hindi terms, I always call it Mehngai. So you need to know what is the inflation, because all your money put together needs to grow more than inflation. Otherwise, you're already losing money. And we'll down this conversation come to, why when we put all our money in FDs, what is it doing, etc., right? So that's the first thing that you need to know. The second is you need to understand something known as asset allocation, and which we women know very well because it's don't put all your eggs in one basket. So we know that our mums have told us since childhood, right? So it's essentially saying, okay, whatever money that you've saved, you need to put it in different baskets. The third thing that you need to know is what they call risk, right? Now, again, very commonsensical, which is why I say it's very simple, that you need to understand where your money is going and what is the risk you're taking with it. And when I say risk, and normally this happens that when I say risk, most people say, I've saved money with a lot of difficulty, I don't want to take risk. But you cross the road, you're taking a risk. But what do? You look at a traffic signal and you say, okay, let me wait when it's safe for me to cross, right? So there's risk in everything we do. It's important to understand what risk we're taking with our money and how can we mitigate it, or how can we take care of that risk. Just like what are the traffic lights for our risk. And beyond this, actually, there's nothing else that you need to pay attention to. Everything else is noise.
You really did simplify it. So you spoke about saving and investing.
Yeah.
What is the difference between saving and investing?
So saving is when you're putting your money safe somewhere, and most of us would be, it would be in bank accounts, savings accounts. We do a fixed deposit, and in our head we are saving. Unfortunately, some of us are still saving it in our cupboards and, saving it as just cash money. I think the difference between saving and investing is that your money needs to grow more than what the price of everything around you is growing, right?
Okay.
Because that means that your money needs to grow to a point where whatever you can afford today, you can afford tomorrow, day after, 3 years later, 5 years later, 8 years later. And that's the one biggest mistake that most of us do. We feel that, okay, I want to buy a home, or I want to buy this car. That's my goal, right? And I'll buy it 3 years later. But we don't need to take into account that 3 years later, what costs today maybe 20 lakhs will cost 24 lakhs. So taking into account that increase of prices, which is inflation, when you take into account that and ensure that your money is growing more than inflation, it's rightly called investing. I meet a lot of women and they'll tell me, when I ask them, okay, do you invest? And they say, yeah. What do you do with your money? Oh, I do fixed deposits. I have LIC policies. And then you really have to break it down to say that none of this is investing. You're saving. And again, putting money in FDs is not bad, but not all your monies, because that is definitely not beating inflation. So that's the first fundamental of understanding what do I need to look for when I start investing. And the first thing you need to look for is that you're beating inflation. That the terminology is called beating inflation. So your money is growing more than inflation.
So let's talk a little bit about inflation.
Yeah.
I love that you called it Mehngai.
Yeah.
Because that's a great way for us to think about it.
Right.
And if we think about it in terms of real life examples, it's almost like how the price of vegetables, how the price of eating a roadside sandwich has increased year on year. And I think that's a way of life.
Sure.
So the same amount of money that you had to buy a Chanel handbag in 2005 is not the same amount of money you need today to buy the same bag.
Correct.
So what is inflation and why does that happen?
Again, Chanel anecdote would be also slightly off because those are artificially pushed prices. So for example, just travel. That's the real inflation. All of us have travel plans and a lot of aspirations that, okay, I want to take this trip to Paris maybe, right? Or I want to take my parents on a holiday. I want to take my children on a holiday. And most people will plan it. You'll say, okay, year, 2 years down the line, I want to take my parents. I know I remember thinking about it and saying, I want to take my parents for this, 4-country tour, which my mother was very keen on doing. And you sort of think about timelines and you say, okay, when my child will grow to maybe, 6 years, then maybe I can, take them, etc. Which means that you've put a goal which is 2-3 years away from now, right? And absolutely right. When you want to buy a Chanel bag, right? You've said, okay, it's aspirational, and you say, okay, I want to buy a Chanel bag or a Hermes bag. And you're putting together money for it, right? But you have to take into account that it will not cost you the same 4 years later or 3 years later, right? That is if you have the patience to wait for 4 years before buying a Chanel bag. But the prices of everything increase because typically it's dependent on oil prices, freight prices, just the price of, for example, in India, RBI calculates inflation. And the way they calculate is they assume that every person is spending about 50% of their money on basic needs, which is you're buying, your housing, food, clothing, rent. And then the other piece you're spending on primary health care, primary schooling, which essentially means government schooling, right? And it's important to put this into context that when RBI says that inflation is 6% or 7%, right? What it means is that if you're consuming this basket, inflation is 6 or 7%. But most of us, we're not just consuming this basket. We take private healthcare, we send our children to private schools, we fly to international destinations, we send our children to, even for example, education, inflation today is 14%. That means year on year, the cost of education is increasing by 14%. And we don't take that into account. A lot of us, if your children are 8 or 9, and everybody has aspirations, I want to send my child to either become an engineer or send them abroad, that inflation is so high, right? So for most of us, inflation is actually 10% and more, average inflation, which typically means that whatever you're consuming today, whatever you're spending your money on today, will cost you 10% more next year. Everything, right? And 10% more than next year, the year after. So that's how you take into account that when you're putting your money aside or wherever you invest it, it has to grow more than inflation. So your Chanel bags will become, probably 3 years later, they will actually become 15 or 16% more expensive, right? If you go for a holiday or if you want to buy a house, that will also become close to like 12, 13% more expensive next year and the year after. So it's important to take that into account when we are investing our money.
So we have largely two groups of women that are tuning in today. One is working women that are earning their own money. And the other is homemakers that are probably have an influx of money coming in from family, but are still managing that money.
Sure.
But if we had to look at both the groups largely, and I'm not sure if there's a difference, but how would you advise that they would save, invest, and spend? What would the planning look like?
Great question, Masoom. I think first of all, every woman who sets out on this journey, there are some who are already doing it. And there are some who've actually never started, especially your first set of audience. When you're 25, you're really not thinking of investing. You're thinking of the today and now. And investing is really not about scrimping on the today, right? So I think every woman needs to tell herself that I can do this. I've got the right aptitude to do it, right? Because the way we think about money is very, very, it's absolutely the right behavior. I hear a lot of women who come to me and say, I'm not good with money. And I'm like, you can't be saying that because you're managing your household budgets. You've done all of that. So you definitely cannot say you're not good with money. That's the first thing we need to stop saying. Women actually are far better with money than men are. And this is not a men versus women conversation, but even then removing that myth. So actually the basic principles are the same for everybody. The way you begin, and this is going to be very contrary to what a lot of, what you may have heard, right? That you begin by looking at financial goals. Yes, you do. But the first thing that you need to do, and look at it as I call it the financial actualization pyramid. Just like we have, a self-actualization pyramid. So the base of that has to be all your safety nets.
Okay.
Which means that you've created an emergency fund, you've taken your right insurances so that tomorrow anything happens, you're good, right? It's that safety net that you build that allows you to sleep peacefully, right? And the way I always say is, first monies that you get, you save, use it to buy your health insurance.
So what all comes under the safety net?
Yeah. So it's essentially, it is, if something were to happen tomorrow, can I take care of my lifestyle expenses, right? So it's essentially creating a corpus, which we call the emergency fund, which could be anywhere between 8 months to a year to 2 years. I think the wealthier you grow, the higher should be your safety net, right? So 8 months to about 2 years of your living expenses. You need to create that corpus, and then you need to have insurance. Primarily health insurance, because if tomorrow something happens, right? And today healthcare costs are, they're driving up like crazy. An average cost of hospitalization in Mumbai for say 4 days or 5 days can be anywhere up to 2 lakhs, right? And if you have a surgery or any other, heart ailment or anything, it could go into many, many lakhs, right? So you want to make sure if that happens, one, the corpus that you've put aside takes care of your expenses, and the insurance takes care of the fact that you don't have to dip into your savings or investments to pay for your hospital bills.
Absolutely.
Right. So this allows you to just sleep peacefully, say, okay, I've got it all in control. That should be the base that you build on. Then you look at your financial goals, right? If you're 20, for example, 25, you'd say your goal could be to study further. It could be to upskill, get married. All of us want sabyasachi lehengas and, the works when we get married. Or it could be in your 30s, you have a child. So look at your child's education goals, etc. So whatever are your financial goals, put them down and start putting money towards that, right? So that's the next pyramid that you want to take care of. And then the third, the tip of that pyramid is when you go and do all that you think is investment, but is actually luxury, which is handbags, which is diamonds, which is, all the things that we spend.
Travel,
art, travel, all of it, right? Now, what we do wrong is actually the minute we start earning, we start at the tip of that pyramid. And we say, okay, let me buy this handbag, let me buy this, whatever, right?
So true.
And it is about living in the today. So while you do that, you have to make sure, first of all, never do that before building your safety net. And then try and put in your financial goals first. And then look at everything else, right? So that actualization pyramid stands true for, young women who've not started investing in the age group of 25 to 35, or women who come from, privileged backgrounds. They have family wealth that they are managing. Even they need to ensure that all the family's financial goals are taken care of. The safety nets are there. For that set of audience, among safety nets is also creation of trusts and wills for your children or for yourself. They're a very, very important tool to help you, one, ensure that the wealth that you have created and you continue to create is ring-fenced when something unforeseen happens. And second, that it is transmission. Right? Maybe at some point you give it to your children, or a husband gives it to the wife, or in the event of anything, a death, etc. All of that is transmission properly. So that wills and trust are also an important part of especially, women who are managing family wealth or come from families that have great wealth.
Who do you go to create a will or a trust?
So you would have a wealth advisor who would ideally be able to do it for you. Or you would have lawyers who will create.
But there's a lot of financial decisions, especially in today's society, that are taken independently.
Right.
Like you can invest through apps. You can, you're saving in an FD in a bank account. So wealth advisors, I do think, is more for the creme of society, and it's a minority. So
Absolutely.
Where would these people go who, are even managing their own investments? Where would they go to create their wills or trusts?
So look, wills, I think everybody should have. Every person at whatever age, the minute you're above 18, you should have a will, because you may have certain wealth yourself. You may be inheriting certain wealth that you don't know about. So create a will. Now, today there are a lot of platforms that will help you create, but I hugely recommend that you use a lawyer to help you create a will, because a will is a very complicated, and it gets more complicated as you grow older, right? And then you may want to look back, say I've created something at 30, at 35, I may want to go back and change stuff because a lot of the dynamics have changed, right? And trusts are typically, actually, they are great tools for, people who have already created wealth, because it's more about transmission of that wealth. And they would typically need an advisor. See, I always say an advisor because an advisor really understands your family dynamics also, right? And it's very important to understand that. So whoever's managing your wealth, if they can do the trust, it's great. If not, again, you use a lawyer. Okay. I think for wills, there are a lot of online platforms, just like you have. Yeah. You'll have online platforms where you can go and say, okay, create my will. There will be a few questions that will be asked. But even before wills, I tell everybody that have all your investments, have your nominations right in it. A lot of people invest but don't have any nominees in the investment. So make sure that you put a nomination. And once you've created significant amount of investments, etc., then create a will for yourself. Yeah.
So we spoke about the pyramid, which is exactly how it needs to be planned. Where is the best place, right? When we're talking about the bottom of the pyramid, where is the best place to create your emergency fund? Is it in cash in your cupboard? Is it in the bank account, in your current account, savings account?
Yeah. So what does an emergency fund mean? It means tomorrow if something happens, I need the money immediately.
Yeah.
Right. So it should be, Masoom, I say this all the time, that actually if you think about this and you take out that whole thought process that I need an expert to guide me in this, even if you just apply your common sense, you'll know, okay, this is my emergency fund. I may need it whenever. So where should I keep it, right? Typically, some amount of it in your savings bank account. Again, it's personal finance, right? What works for me may not work for you. You may be somebody who is very comfortable with money, everything in savings bank account because you feel, it's at the bank, it's all right, right? I may feel, okay, 10% of it, I'll put it in the bank account and maybe some of it I'll put in what we call debt funds or liquid funds.
And tell us about that. How do you feel?
So I would put 10% in a savings bank account. I'd put the rest across liquid funds. And today you have arbitrage funds, which are, so essentially where your money is capital protected. That means it's not going through the ups and it's not market linked. It's giving you a fixed return is where I would put. And ideally it should give you more than your savings bank account. Ideally even more than your fixed deposit. So anywhere between 6 to 7%, because an emergency fund you've created, you may never use it. If you're fortunate enough, you may never need to access it, but it should still keep growing, right? Remember, it still has to grow as close to inflation. This may not beat your inflation, but this definitely has to grow as close to inflation as possible. And today liquid funds, debt funds will give you anywhere between 6 to 7% return.
And what is the return that fixed deposit will give you versus a savings account will give you?
So fixed deposit, we're actually also heading towards a low interest regime. So fixed deposits today would give averagely anywhere around 6%, 5.5%, 6%. And over a period of time, as interest rates come down, it'll only go lower. Savings bank accounts give you 2 or 3% only. But the truth is, when I ask a lot of people that, where have you put your money? And they'll say fixed deposit. That's where I put my money. Okay, what is the return you're getting there? I don't know about the return. I've just kept it because it's locked away. Right? So a lot of us don't even ask what is the return we're generating. A bank for us is a safe place. Because we don't know about other products, we feel, okay, that's where my money is. But really understanding this in context of inflation or Mehngai is very important.
Yes.
That if all my money is in the bank account between fixed deposit and savings account, then I'm not beating inflation. That means, and a lot of women say, I don't want to take risk with my money. But if you've kept all your money in bank accounts, you've taken a known risk because your money is anyways losing its value. So it's important to understand that also, that there is risk in everything, but how do you calibrate? How do you look at that risk in your context and your needs?
Where would you put gold in the pyramid?
Well, very interesting question. See, also when I talk about safety nets, like I said, the money there should make you feel comfortable when you sleep, right? A good night's sleep. Okay, I know where my money is. I would put gold also in the safety nets. For some people, again, it's very personalized. I'm not somebody who would put money in gold.
Why?
Right? Because I feel most of my money will give me better return over a long-term period. Right? Most of us mistake gold as, let's go back to what our dadis did. Right? For them, there was no other asset class, nowhere else to put money except gold and real estate. And that's become a muscle memory. We feel, okay, that's where I should be putting my money, real estate or gold. Right? And gold, because that was the most liquid asset then. So if you bought gold, you knew that, okay, if I need something, I can sell it tomorrow. Right? But over the last 30 years, the gold prices have become very volatile. So we've seen the run up in gold over the last 2 years. And I used to do commodity futures about 20 years back, and we were tracking gold prices, and gold prices would move a rupee or 2 rupees over a week, right? And today they move like hundreds of rupees every day. So they're still volatile. So gold has to be a long term. You have to think of it that, okay, if I buy it, I have to just keep it. It's because, or if I go to sell it, the prices may fall. I may not, suppose I've put 20,000 or 20 lakhs. Tomorrow it may go to like 19 lakhs. So to make it, the reason I still put it in the safety net is because when you have put money into any other asset class, equities or shares, stock market, anywhere, debt markets, and something like a COVID happens, something like the Russia-Ukraine war happens, something like, any geopolitical issue, right?
Yes.
That one asset class that creates that buffer is gold. So stock prices may tank, and we saw this in COVID, right? Stock prices tanked, stock markets tanked because of a fear, but gold rose. So it's just that buffer that you create in times that there is geopolitical issues or there's some epidemic or something that the world has not seen or foreseen, right? Then it's gold because that attracts all the money. So just have 5 to 10% of your money.
How can one invest in gold? What is the process of doing it? Is buying jewelry an investment?
Not really. Okay, so the key word here is invest, right? When you invest into something, you want to make sure that if you've put 1 lakh rupees in it, all of it is going into gold, right? A lot of us mistake jewelry as gold investment. When you buy jewelry, say you've bought jewelry worth 1 lakh, you'll pay GST, you'll pay making charges. All of these things are taking away almost 8 to 9,000 rupees from that 1 lakh as cost, right? So now you have 92,000 rupees, which then will compound at the price of gold because the 8,000 is already gone, right? So it's important to know that when you want to invest in gold, that money should either go into gold mutual funds or gold ETF because 100% of that money is going into gold. And when gold prices increase, all your 1 lakh will compound and grow versus only 92,000 that will grow. But it's a fair question that, when you want to wear jewelry, you can't wear mutual funds. So when you want to buy jewelry, think of it one as a luxury. And if you're planning, so I know a lot of people, when they plan for their children's weddings or marriages, they will start buying gold, right? And we always say buy mutual funds. When you want to actually make jewelry, that's when you sell those mutual funds and you'll be able to buy far more gold because your money is appreciated a lot more when you buy the mutual funds. So that is the right way. There is also something known as digital gold that people of late has become very popular, particularly with women. But even digital gold, one, there is a cost, there's GST, there's a cost that is involved in that as well. Second, it's not regulated. And I would always say that when you're investing, you should put money. There are questions you need to ask. Who regulates this? Where does this money go? Tomorrow, if I don't get my money back, whom do I reach out to? Right? These are very important questions to ask. And while that's not regulated, so I would still recommend that put it into a gold mutual fund or a gold ETF. That's true gold investing. There's a very interesting question that you had sent, which was the cultural barriers, right?
Yes.
And it is true, by the way. I think we are still a privileged lot. I think it is still true that, firstly, money is the biggest equalizer in any relationship, in any situation. And it is true that even today, a lot of the women are not allowed to manage.
So moving to the second rung in the pyramid, which is investments, take us through what are the different ways that we can invest our money in.
Great. So, there's a lot of noise, Masoom. Everybody comes and asks me, should I do private equity? Especially the, people who come from wealthy families, they want to try their hand at private equity, venture capital, cryptocurrency, a lot out there, right? But again, it's financial management, and to meet your financial goals, you need only 3 asset classes, and asset classes essentially 3 places where you should put money. The most important is equity. That will help you beat inflation. That's the only asset class that will help you beat inflation. Second is debt, and the third is gold. You actually need nothing else. I know you will tell me why not real estate, etc. But all of that is what you buy or put money into to get your sense of security. It may or may not achieve your financial goal.
Do you believe real estate is a good form of investing your money?
I think real estate is a place where you should put money because you should put money in real estate if you feel that a roof over your head gives you security. But don't think of it as an investment. And you should only put that much money, only buy that much real estate that gives you that security. Real estate over the last 20 years has given about 6.5% return. CAGR. That means it's definitely way away from beating inflation. Real estate is also very, very cyclical. There were years, if it goes into a bear run where prices will just not escalate, it'll be a 10-year cycle. So if you've actually invested for a financial goal, for example, a lot of people put money and say, I bought this house and I'll sell it because my child will go for higher education. But if it's in that continuous bear phase, you'll even find it hard to sell, right? So it can be very, very illiquid. And therefore, real estate, I know this sounds very controversial, but real estate is really not a place that you should not think of it as investment. And when you talk, by the way, when I talk to, people in the age group of 25 to 35 now, they don't even want to own a home because they probably want to move places. They want to, live in a place that works for them and move every 5 years. They really don't feel the need to have a home. And unfortunately, in our society, the minute you start earning, the minute you start, creating some money, you're pushed into saying 2 things: get married and buy a house, right? And get married, I will leave to everybody else's opinion, but get a house is not really a priority in this second rung of financial goals.
Very interesting. So now coming back to the different types of investing that you were talking about.
Yeah. So equity, debt and gold.
Okay.
These are the only 3 places that you need to park your money when you're investing it. Equity is essentially you can invest in the stock markets. You can buy direct stocks. You can buy, you can do a PMS if you have 50 lakhs plus to put in PMS as in portfolio management service. Or you can actually go via mutual funds where you have an expert who is managing that money. My preferred choice, given that I've done, been in this industry and done wealth management for almost 30 years now, is that mutual funds are your best bet. And for a few reasons. Again, statistics, and this is, SEBI statistics, this is AMFI statistics, that only 5% people who invest in direct stocks actually outperform the index, which is your Sensex or Nifty. And to be in that 5%, you need a huge amount of skill, time, as well as some amount of luck, right? Whereas mutual funds consistently over a long-term period will give you an alpha or, some return better than the index.
Yes.
Right. So again, mutual funds, if you put in even 100 rupees, in that 100 rupees, you've got 30 stocks. So it's also very well diversified. And it's where most of us who don't want to do active management of our money should put money. And through mutual funds, you can do equity, you can do debt, you can do gold. So actually, it's fairly simple.
What is debt?
Debt is essentially, and I give this example all the time, Masoom, that, if I've started a company called Lxme and say I need, 10 crores for this business. and I come and ask you that, Masoom, I've got a great business plan. I have 6 crores, but I need 4 more. And you tell me, Priti, I love your plan. It's great. I'll give you money at an interest, pay me every month certain amount of interest and pay this money back after 4 years. So what you've actually given to me is debt. So I come out, I reach out to you and you've given me debt. So I've given my example, but today the government comes and borrows from us. So all your government securities, government bonds, these are all debt. When you put your money in fixed deposit, you've actually lent it to the bank because the bank is further lending it, right? You may not think of it like that, but that's why the bank is giving you an interest.
True.
Or companies come and borrow. So your Reliance or Infosys, all these companies will come and borrow money from the public at large. These are known as corporate bonds. Anything that gives you a fixed interest or a fixed income product with the guarantee of money back is essentially debt. And similarly, if you told me, Masoom, I love your business plan and, I'm going to put in the money, but can I be a partner in this business? If it grows, if it works well, then I will also earn money. I'll participate in the profits. And I understand there's a risk in it and sometimes it may not work. Then you've actually bought a share in my business. You've bought equity. So that's essentially a very simple way of understanding equity, that when you buy equity of a company, you've actually become a shareholder, a partner, even if it's a minuscule amount in a larger company.
Yes.
So that's equity and debt. And then there's, of course, gold. And like I said, gold also through mutual funds or ETFs. If you've actually allocated your money across 3 for all your financial goals, then you're pretty much set. And the way I look at it also is, of course, the next question is now that I have X amount of money, how do I put it in these 3 baskets, right? So 2 ways of doing it. One is you look at your goals and we bucket all goals into ultra short term, which is from now to 1 year, or short term, which is 1 year to 3 years, or long term. Anything beyond 3 years, we call long term. This is financial terminology, right? And based on when your goal, you need to achieve that goal, you choose where to put your money. So in an ultra short term goal, for example, you want to go for a holiday after 6 months or 7 months. It's an ultra short term goal. You'd put your money in savings account, debt funds, liquid funds, recurring deposits. If it's a short term goal, then you'd bring in some element of equity because you also want your money to grow. And if it's a long term goal, you'd put your money largely into equity and some amount into gold and not in savings bank account or fixed deposits. So once you classify your goals in time frames, you actually can take your decision of where your money should go. So that's the first way of looking at it. And the second is to say, look at asset allocation. That, okay, I'm going to put, and there's a very simple thumb rule. And I think the operative word here is thumb rule. You can't just apply it blankly, but typically begin with your age.
Okay.
So if you are, 30 years old, then it's 100 minus 30. So 70 that's left goes into equity and 30 is between debt and gold. But you then apply also that you may be 30, but you may have a lot of near-term responsibilities, right? That you may want to move 50% into debt and 50% into equity. So begin with that thumb rule and divide your money between these 3 asset classes, what is known as asset allocation. And actually, asset allocation is the most magical way of managing your money.
So I don't have complete clarity on debt. So under debt is basically liquid funds?
Everything that gives you a fixed return. So
fixed deposit is also debt.
Fixed deposit is also debt. Corporate bonds are debt. Government securities are debt.
Okay.
All debt funds. There's a whole host of debt funds, debt mutual funds.
Okay.
Which are overnight funds, liquid funds.
So safer but lower return.
Lower return. Okay. Absolutely. But even when you say safer, see, even within debt funds, you have a credit risk fund. So you have to understand also which debt fund you have to put it in. But typically debt as an asset class is where you should park money for all your needs that are there from today to the next 2 years.
As a woman who's trying to navigate all of this, what would be your recommendation? Learn to do it yourself or get a wealth advisor?
I think you have to first learn to do it yourself. I mean, how will you understand that the advice coming from your wealth advisor is suited to you or not? I say this all the time because this is personal finance,
True.
right? It has to work for you. You may have a wealth advisor who will say you're 25 years old and they may say, put all your money into equities,
Yes.
right? But as a person, you may not be comfortable. You know, for you, a fixed deposit gives you security. For you, buying gold gives you security. So you need to put that into the equation to say, first of all, what gives me security? Second, what are my, what are my liabilities? What are my goals? What are my earnings?
Yes.
Based on that, what are my responsibilities? You then understand, okay, what this wealth advisor is telling me works for me or not. So it's very important to first, learn. And it's, like I said, it's not a science. You spend an hour in just understanding all of these basics. It doesn't get more complicated than that. So when a wealth advisor tells you that, okay, put money here, okay, this works for me. You are able to have that discussion. And then, of course, as you create more and more wealth, it's always good to have an advisor because the dynamics of the markets are always changing. And I think a wealth advisor also does the role of literally like your moral police, right?
Yes.
They keep telling you that you may be tempted at times to go off your financial plan, and their role is to bring you back and say, no, this is how you stick to it, right? So, yeah.
So, Preeti, you are a very wealthy woman and one of the most successful women in the Indian finance industry. What are some money habits that you follow?
So I think 2-3 things. One, and I am really grateful, I think, to both my parents from very early on inculcating this, which brings me to the point that every family should talk money with their children very early on. It's very important.
Yes.
Right. So I think one, save before I spend. I'm a shopaholic. I'm an Instagram shopaholic. I don't go to stores, but I allow Instagram to sell stuff to me.
Of course.
But the reason I am able to do that is because I first save X amount of money that I know that I have to put away for my investments. Right? So that has always been a habit that's helped, and that goes into my investments. So that's taken care of. So that's a discipline. Second, I always sort of I use my goals as the guiding factor. So I've always said, okay, this is my goal and this is where money should go. Third, I think it's very important to be on board of your family's wealth management. Again, family wealth management is not just a man's job or just one person's job. I think it's very important for both partners as well as children as they grow up to be a part of this strategy, because it's like four wheels of a car that need to move together. So you can't have one person not know what the financial plan is and be in their own direction.
Yes.
So I think I've always insisted that one, I be part of the family wealth planning. But second, also that as my kids have grown up, they are also part of this entire wealth journey. And I'm always very big on mutual funds. I put a lot of my money in equity mutual funds because for me now, those, like I said, the safety nets and a large part of the financial goals are taken care of. So I do that. But all of this also allows me to indulge. Like I said, life is not just about thinking about your future. It's also living in the present. So it allows me to live in the present.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
And enjoy my life because I know that my safety nets and my financial goals are taken care of.
I do think that's also interconnected, right? To live freely today, when you know your future is secured, it's a lot more effortless. It's a lot more easy because you know you've planned well.
Yeah.
And that planning really kicks in at that point.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the women actually don't ask this, but I think a lot of not just women, but more women actually go to sleep with that worry.
Yeah.
That what if tomorrow there's not enough money, right? And I think just staying abreast your family, wealth planning, understanding how to manage money, understanding your financial goals allows you to be at peace. And like you said, live freely in the today.
And I do think that peace is something that really impacts our lives, from our health to our lifestyle to how we're spending each and every day.
Absolutely.
And I think we really undermine how much money is actually impacting our lives. We think it's something we're using to buy and sell. But when stressful times come,
Yeah.
you either have the means to salvage it or you don't.
Right.
And that all depends on how you've managed it in the last decade or more than that.
Absolutely. I think you should start managing it the minute you start earning. Like I give this example to a lot of women who say, oh, this is very hard to do. How can I manage? And I say, like, if you put in just 1,000 rupees, begin with 1,000 rupees a month, 1,000 rupees SIP a month, and every year step it up by 10%. By the time you are 60, you will have 5 crores of a corpus, which is a very decent retirement fund for most women who begin, for example, their careers earning 4.5-5 lakhs, right? So it's as simple as that. Even if you just follow that, right? You've earned 5 crores more than what you would have. And that can literally make your retirement richer, right? So I think it's very important to just also bring into context and bring home how simple it is to manage your money. It's really not difficult. And I wish every woman would believe that it's simple. I can do it. I have the right attributes to do it.
What is a money myth that you wish women in India especially would unlearn?
One is that money is complicated. Managing money is complicated. It is not. It's one of the most natural thing for us to do as women, right? So when we are told that you're risk averse, women are risk averse, you cannot take risk. I always give this example. We give birth to children. What could be more riskier than that? So do not tell us that we are risk averse.
Yes.
I think we are risk aware, and which is the right attribute, which means that we actually understand where money is going in and we put our money. So this whole myth about finance or money management being complicated, and second, that we as women can't do it, is all not true. Right? We do it very well. Today, there are women fund managers who give you, and it's statistically proven, right? They give you 1.5-2% better return than men fund managers. Now, why does that happen? Warren Buffett says that invest like a woman, because we have the right attributes. We're disciplined. We're risk aware. I have women on the Lxme platform. If they've invested for a goal, come hail, rain, storm, their investments will continue. That kind of discipline, right?
Yes.
That's what's needed for
absolutely.
investing.
Absolutely. What is a question about money that women are not asking enough, but should be?
I think women are generally not asking money questions. And that is very worrisome, because we're asking all questions. We're asking about health, fitness, but we're really not asking, how do I become, and this is one question that every woman should ask, how do I achieve financial freedom? And what does financial freedom means? That today I have enough money that I don't have to compromise in any situation. I don't have to work for money. Time is in my control. And that should be every woman's aim, right? But I don't see women asking that, how do I reach this financial freedom? And I think it's one question that should be sort of your North Star when you start talking about money.
On the list of India's richest people, the percentage of women is shockingly low, right? It's between 5 to 10%.
Yeah.
How do you think we can change that over the next decade?
So actually, that is very rapidly changing. I think other than the US, Asia is going to have the richest cohort of women. Today, women world over manage about 30% of wealth. They own 30% of wealth, right? This will only increase, and I'll give you India. I'll put India in context. Today, I think women over the next 2 years will create close to $750 billion of wealth, because women are earning a lot more women in workforce. They will have more wealth. Today, women are inheriting a lot more wealth. So, we will have this is going to very rapidly change, and I'm very, very positive, which is why I feel today is the right time for women to understand and learn about money management, have control over it, because there's going to be a lot of money in their hands. By 2030, we are actually going to have, almost 40% of India's wealth is going to be in the hands of women. So very rapidly changing. And I'm so delighted and so optimistic about that.
And where do you think this change is coming from? Right? I do think there's a divide in society where there's women who still don't understand money at all.
Yeah.
Are, even need the permission to be able to manage their money. And we do see that this number is rapidly increasing. So where is the reality and the perception? Where are we amongst all of that?
So I think we are on this cusp of this big change and big shift coming in, Masoom. I think we come from a place where it was told to us that, the roles were very divided, right? In everything. Women manage homes, men manage the outside world. Women manage the children, men manage the money. We came from a place where most men would tell women that don't worry about money management, I'll do it, right?
Yes.
To a place where we had this television ad about washing machines, right? Where a woman is telling a man, share the load.
Yes.
And slowly we're coming to a place where men are also telling women that share this load of money management, Why should I alone be responsible for the financial security of women? We still have, and I say this very often, that we still have men saying that, don't worry, I'll take care of it. You're doing it with a great intent, but you're not helping the women, right? They need to manage their money. Women are getting more agency over their money as I think the exposure to the world, to social media, our aspirations. I think we are able to now very clearly say that money is a conversation I want to have. Money is something I want to have agency over. Because now we have our own dreams. You're a live example of how, you've made your dreams come true. Which today, 20 years back, if you told somebody this is my dream, it would be hard to get buy-in from at least the men in the family, right? Today, women don't wait for that permission. So they are saying, okay, no, I want to go and achieve that. I think it is in the higher echelons of our society, it is changing. I have to say, even today, when you go down to, down the social ladder, it's still not the same. We still hear horrible stories,
yes.
Right? But I think with education, literacy, and women going out and earning more, the number of women in workforce has doubled over the last 5 years. Right? Which means that women are choosing to go out and earn more. Women are doing their own, they're becoming gig workers. They're creating their own micro entrepreneurship. Women are choosing to also stay single for a long time. Today, I think in India, we have 70 million single women, which is equivalent to the population of England. Right? So I think the dynamics are changing very rapidly. And which is why there is this big shift that is coming in, where I think financial equality will become a must-have in, I think, most relationships. I mean, today, women are talking before they get married. They're even talking in relationships before getting married. They're having financial conversations, which was really judged. And even today it is in some parts of our country. But having said that, I think a lot is changing, and it will. And then, of course, there are a lot of us today, we are having this conversation which reaches to so many women.
Yes.
So that brings the change as well.
How did you navigate that in your personal life? You've been working since a very young age.
Yeah. I mean, I always say that I've had the privilege of my father making sure when I was in college, he was probably worried that I'm wasting time hanging out with the boys. So he said, come to office, look at our portfolios. And I think that was, it was like I tasted blood, because I could see that here's money that's been saved, put into these companies. Yes. And the value of it is growing. So while you're sleeping, this money is making money. You're getting dividends. So it was very thrilling for me. And that's how I got into it. Then I interned with my uncle. Worked with him. He was a stockbroker. And then, of course, as is usual I come from a Marwari family. So as is usual in Marwari families, got married very early when I was 19. And it almost 2-3 years of break where it was a new set of circumstances and I didn't know how to navigate. But I think back of my mind, I always knew financial equality is or financial acumen is something that I have to continue to build on.
How did you navigate that conversation with your husband? Given that this is 25 odd years ago,
Yeah.
and you were probably financially independent at that point.
Yeah. So actually, I have to say this, and I mention this all the time, that this is a conversation that men have to be equally a part of. Again, I think I was lucky to have an amazing father-in-law. So he knew that I came with this experience, and in the first 2-3 years of my marriage, and I was yearning. I'd barely finished my graduation, and I said I want to study further, and I'd had my daughter by then. So then he said, "Listen, why don't you manage all our money, right? All our finances, like look into our portfolio." He literally sort of handed it over to me to say, "Okay, now this is something you look after." So I have to really sort of thank him. I think when it comes to my husband, I think from day one, he's been very, very clear that, we are equals when it comes to taking money decisions in the household.
But there must have been something you did to ensure that, right? How can that conversation, for so many women, that's a tricky conversation of holding your own.
Yeah. So I think, and I think it's also how you frame your conversations. It's very important. I've realized this. And again, a lot of introspection, because a lot of women on our community say that, how do I ask this to my husband? How do I ask my in-laws, right? So it's important to sort of frame that question. I think every time I spoke, I had the knowledge. I had done all of this hands-on, so I could actually participate. So that was the first step, to participate in these conversations, because in most households like ours, women don't participate and they're not encouraged to participate. So participate in that conversation and say, okay, I know what the markets are doing. I know this is happening, or, this stock, etc. Once you participate, I think you become part of that larger conversation. And then you can start framing it and say, I'm happy to manage some amount of money myself, because this is something that I've done, or something that I would enjoy doing, even if I've not done.
Yes.
So I think that's how I navigated it. But I think I have to say, I think it wasn't as difficult for me as it is actually for a lot of women.
As the final question of today, what is the vision that you have for women and money in India over the next decade?
So I think it's my dream, which I'm also turning into a financial goal, that every woman in India should be financially secure. That's the first step. And it's a big one. I mean, today women really don't have agency. They don't know where their money is.
Absolutely.
Only 2% women have thought about their retirement. We are all depending on husband, father, God, son. Somebody will take care of us, right? And these are the wrong times to think like that. So I think just creating that financial security for herself, that's my vision. And then moving to financial freedom. Because all that's wrong that's happening with women, I truly believe a lot of it has to do with the fact that we are unable to move out of toxic situations, or, be confident enough to say, okay, no, I don't have to compromise with this. So I think really that, and I think we are women, we need to also enjoy our lives. We need to, for example, motherhood is a great joy. And if we can actually take that call that, okay, I want to spend the first 6 months of my child's life just with my child, right? Or the first year of my child's life with my child, or any other joy that we may find. I want to take a sabbatical. I want to write a book. I want to start something of my own. I think we should create that for ourselves. And that's my vision over the next decade. And I don't have any doubt that that will happen, given where we are as a country, given how, the entire ecosystem has come together to say that we want every citizen to make use of, all the financial tools that are available. And I think as India, we are actually perfectly and probably the best poised for this to happen.
I believe that too. Thank you so much, Priti, for making the time and for sharing all the incredible information. It's been so value adding, and look forward to doing this again with you.
Same here. It's been a pleasure. And I hope this reaches lots and lots of
Me
women.
too.
And
Me
more
too.
power to you for having
Thank
this
you.
conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching or listening all the way through. I'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. It helps this show reach more incredible people like you, and most importantly, get closer to our goal to build an incredible community with the Masoom Minawala show. My goals with this show are audacious, and you all are the most important part of this journey. I want to create for you. So tell me what you want to hear. What stories could change your life? I read every single comment, and your reflections honestly help us shape where this show goes next. I'll see you in the next one.